Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode 158 of the Thoughtium Navigating NOW virtual roundtable series. I am Anthony Ewing, your host, CEO, co-founder here at Thoughtium, and we are thrilled to be going live every Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. Central with leaders and leadership topics that matter most to you. And this Thoughtium Navigating NOW platform has been a mainstay for us and our community over the course of the last several years. We, of course, here at Thoughtium have been creating the space for the last 7 years. And this platform is one of maybe the truest expressions of how we are so adamant about creating the space for these types of dialogues. And leaders that come in and out of Thoughtium and our community in ways that we could never imagine, that have profound impact and that have an incredible story to tell themselves. And today we have one of those leaders at the table with us. We want to welcome Pat McCauley. He is a strategic advisor. He's also a career executive across several different industries. He's had just a ton of influence on many leaders, both here at Thoughtium and as well as our extended community and client network. Just a well-known individual because of the fact that he is always at the point of impact, having the big discussions and really influencing us in some incredible ways. So with that being said, I want to welcome Pat to the table. Pat McCauley, welcome to the Navigating NOW virtual roundtable series, brother.
Well, thank you, Anthony. And I just appreciate the warm introduction. It's great to see you and be back on Navigating NOW. And, you were very kind in your comments, but I certainly have always appreciated the opportunity to work with you, Norm, and the team and partner with you guys and think through life together as we go through. So I really am honored and appreciate the opportunity to be here for what I think is going to be a very, very special day.
Definitely. Again, so appreciate your time, your leadership, and your mentorship as well too. You and I were prepping for this show, and we were kind of deciding what would be a wonderful way to express the relationship, particularly that you and I have shared over the course of the last few years, and as well the story that we're telling with Navigating NOW over the course of the last 7 years. And you came up with the wild idea of flipping the script, and you asked me, how many times have you been at this side of the table, receiving these questions and having to think about them in real time and telling a little bit of your story. And of course, we love to tell our story here at Thoughtium, but I've never been an interviewee on this show, and I couldn't think of a better host for this episode 158 than you, Pat. So I want to just give you the table and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And usually what I would do is welcome the guest of honor, but I think that's inappropriate to welcome you to a show that you know as well and founded more than anybody else. But it's, and I really mean that, it's a great chance to be here today to flip the script. And I know, Anthony, that when you and I were kind of going through this, one of the things that I know between the people that we talk to, the Thoughtium community, a lot of people would love to learn more about you, your background, kind of what got you here. And that's the real genesis of what we're doing today. So thank you for being open to the idea. My biggest fear is you were going to say, no, we're not doing it. But you, as always, embrace things and your game. And it was fantastic. So I think it's really exciting, and I look forward to this opportunity today. I think we're going to learn a lot more about you, and you've been so gracious, helping us, giving us resources through Navigating NOW, helping all of us as leaders to work through things, learn things, and collaborate. So thank you for giving us a chance to kind of flip the script a little. Well, I can't think of a better place to start than well before Thoughtium, well before business. I want to go back in your background. Every single one of us has a story, our family and where we're from, and it has a lot of formulation to who we are today. So let's start with sharing a little about your background.
Yeah, I mean, Pat, not only are you a man after my own heart, but we're cut from the same cloth. People that know me know that my philosophy is that, life is nothing but a collection of stories and people. And I oftentimes challenge everybody to go back to their childhood, because it's when we go back to our childhood that sometimes we can identify the earliest expressions of what make us, leaders today, or even, great at our craft. And for me, as I look back, particularly my early childhood, I was raised in an environment where connection was at the forefront, and the connection that I was exposed to was through great experiences. And people that know me well, and even my team, have maybe heard this story before, but I don't know if I've directly related it to the work that we do here at Thoughtium. Growing up, I was in a family of 5, and some of my most vivid memories were the social gatherings and the family gatherings that my mother and father would orchestrate. And when I say orchestrate, because it was exactly that, it was so far from your kind of standard potluck get together. My mother was adamant about truly creating the space for our family and friends to come together for these unique experiences. So if we were getting together for a holiday party, the mood was just right in the house. There were, different zones throughout the house, some conducive to, catching up with friends, some conducive to, champagne toasts. And in the basement, there was always, Motown VHS tapes playing with maybe a little bit of dancing, for those who have had a couple of drinks. And at the time, I just thought this was normal. I just thought that these were the environments that we had to kind of develop our own understanding of the world. But as I got exposed to more and more of the world, I realized just how unique, those skills were, particularly that my mother had, to create these meaningful experiences. And it's that same passion and sentiment for creating the space, for developing unique connections and creating these great experiences that I'm able to bring to my work every day here at Thoughtium. And that alongside of some of the great relationships that I had within my family between my mother, father, and grandfather, all who led in their respective industries, really is what's made me the human and the leader that I am today.
It's amazing that everything we read about the formation and the way we think is pretty much developed at 5 years old, 7 years old, as you go through those things. And it's really, I have not heard that story, but it does help me understand where that passion for creating the space, and that's something you grew up in. So wonderful background, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So Anthony, we've got a few things I'd like to walk through today. And again, I was thinking coming into this, all the viewers, when we think about what you've done for us and how you've helped us, but the title of today is 7 years of creating the space. You guys recently celebrated your 7th anniversary, so congratulations on that. But when we think about creating the space, and you just mentioned it kind of when we kicked it off, I cannot think of a better place to start than Navigating Now, what we're on, show 158. I don't want to underestimate the commitment weekly to do this show that you and the team have put on to bring us the value of doing that. So we know you guys have a wonderful library of all the different shows out there, but something we don't know, or maybe some do, but I certainly don't, and I'm not sure everybody does, is where in the world do the origins of Navigating Now come from, and how did it all begin?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting for somebody who was classically trained in business administration and marketing, and very much consider myself a student of content creation and social media. The impetus of Navigating Now, I don't think could have come from a book, and it definitely couldn't have come from one of the hundreds of YouTube videos that I've consumed on effective content creation or even community building. The starting point for Navigating Now was at the doorstep of the pandemic. And I know a lot of organizations and influencers and content creators were really thinking of unique ways to engage with their community, their clients, their fans from afar. And thus began, kind of this wave of webinars and webcasts and virtual series. And that was, originally kind of our thought was that we wanted to be able to reach our community in unique ways. But I think what we really challenged ourselves to do was to tap into, a sense of urgency and a sense of proximity to these topics that you might not be able to achieve on a monthly or quarterly webinar that has been, built by a team of content creators and put through the legal regulatory process and ultimately published to your community. we realized that we were at the time a 12-person firm, that we had the agility to meet the needs of the time with COVID kind of shutting everything down, and our clients really trying to figure out, how they maintain continuity. We had the ability to meet the needs of that moment, both in the way that we pivoted and developed specific offerings that helped our clients through it. But in this case, we said, why don't we think of a massively unique opportunity to bring these conversations to our community in much more of a ready now type format. And the only way that we could think of doing that was committing to going live every week. And this was something that, none of our counterparts were doing. Even to this day, we take a lot of pride in the value prop here is the fact that every week over week, we hit live and we go to all of our social media channels. And we do that with a perspective that is just as fresh and just as unique and just as urgent as this week. And that's really where the spirit of Navigating Now started. It was this kind of wild claim that we could show up for our community week over week. And I'll underline all of this with, again, a story. Part of our experience as we worked through, the 2 to 3 years of the pandemic was we very quickly realized that as a small, 15-person organization based here in Chicago, we were part of a very small network of small business owners, community organizers here in the Chicagoland area that had the same desire to go to market with a perspective and cut through some of the kind of archaic and traditional webinars that were kind of going out there. And we shared that passion for the local community and the local business owners who were equally trying to get their message out, or equally trying to, for the owner of the Italian deli shop down the street, Jimmy Graziano, he was trying to keep the lights on. He was trying to sell sandwiches till the bread ran out, and he was not on DoorDash. And so, we connected with all of these small business owners in what we call our 6-block radius, because we weren't flying anywhere and we were walking, my co-founder Norm and I were walking to the office every day, and we were physically stopping and talking to other business owners, gym owners, restaurant owners. Jimmy, every morning I would stop and talk to him before, he opened the doors. And everybody was trying to find a unique way to connect with their community, because community was what would sustain organizations over the course of the next couple of years, especially for small businesses. If we don't have community, if we don't have people coming through our doors, we have nothing. We don't have a runway of 2, 3, 4 years of capital and funding to sustain us. So we really tapped into that small business mentality, and we tapped into the desires and the passions of those around us that wanted to go to market with a perspective that would connect with their community in unique ways. And we said, you know what? We're going to set it up, and we're going to hit live every Thursday, and our community can count on us to tell the story, and to tell the story of other small business owners that were doing the same thing.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing. And it's something that I've noticed too. And you and I've chatted about this. I said, I don't know as many companies that are invested as Thoughtium within the community. You said it beautifully. It's interesting. It started out from COVID to connect, but the overwhelming passion that you guys have collectively for developing the community, connecting the community, helping each other out, being a resource for each other. You guys live it through Navigating Now. And I think it's been wonderful to see it kind of evolve over 3+ years now that it's been in place. So one of the things, Anthony, I've got some thoughts, but I want to hold it till you answer it first.
Yeah.
When you talk to your community, you, Norm, the team are as well connected as anybody. What do you think the value is? What do you hear back from people about Navigating Now when they watch the content, both for you internally at Thoughtium, but as well as just some of the general feedback that you're getting?
Yeah. I love that question. The value and the value prop has evolved over, the course of the 3.5 years that we've been doing this. I'd say that at the beginning, it really started with delivering on-time topics around business continuity, supporting a virtual first environment, enabling, field-based organizations that were stuck at home and trying to connect with their customers virtually. We were able to bring those topics again in more of an organic, low fidelity fashion, that sparked conversation, week over week over week. I'd say that as we, stepped into maybe a more sophisticated version of Navigating Now, we've been able to start to organize, some of these, these episodes in series that you can take and apply or deliver to your team as, part of their training or their ongoing development. So one example there is we have a series called Thoughtium Perspectives, where we put together 3 episodes of Navigating Now that support a very particular topic. Most recently, we did one on, developing people. We've done one on the virtual first environment upcoming in November. We're doing one on future-proofing learning and development. And these series then become almost these reference assets to our community and our clients to be able to socialize amongst their team, to be able to start the discussion within their team. And ultimately, they then become a really good platform for us to engage with our clients, because we're able to share our perspective and even a little bit of a toolkit with those perspectives. Where I think we're headed, and again, this is, it's a whole nother episode. I could talk forever about just the power in content creation and taking down the lens of perfection when you create content and challenging yourself to hit the button, the live button. It has done so much for us collectively at Thoughtium, for me individually as a facilitator and a leader, and hopefully for our community in terms of their expectations of experiencing us as a team and as a brand. So most recently, one of the things that we're really excited about is that this platform has allowed us to show our personality in ways that you might not get in a client meeting or a business development discussion or a proposal. And we've had more than just me, in the front of the camera. We've had folks from our team that have stepped in and really brought light to their story and the work that they love to do. We have a session called Hot Takes that we do once a month where we discuss the merits of pumpkin spice latte. And it shows a certain personality to our team that you will get inevitably when working with us, but you're not going to see it on the capability slide deck that we send to you ahead of a proposal meeting, to share a little bit about who we are. You're just not going to get it. And that personality is so much of who we are. And it's such a differentiator about, that supports the Thoughtium experience in creating the space, that we're leveraging now, Navigating Now and digital content to really give people snippets of the personality. And I will tell you, the response has been incredible. It's almost like, it's so interesting that our 2 top viral clips on either LinkedIn or Instagram are these little nuggets about interests that our teammates have, or Ashani's hot take on the fact that she thinks that pumpkin only belongs in pies and not in your coffee. And so we're getting into like newer layers of brand building that makes me really excited, because when I started Thoughtium in 2016 as a solopreneur, I knew one thing for sure. Well, maybe 2. I knew that we were destined to build a team. And secondly, I knew that I wanted to build something far greater than my name. I really wanted to build a brand and an ethos. The same feeling that I got, or you got, walking into my mother's holiday party, 2 weeks before Christmas. That ethos of creating the space can be felt in brand, and that brand is now perpetuated by our platforms like Navigating Now.
Well, I love the platform. I love how it's evolving. I do love the pumpkin spice. I love that episode as well. I learned a lot. But, and I know we're excited. I speak on behalf of many people when we can't wait to see the additional content. One of the things I thought about with Navigating Now is you're very thoughtful in everything you do. And the 2 words to me, as an individual that loves listening to so many different types of business entrepreneurs, is the navigating, which means, we're always moving. We're always have things going, agility. And you move for different reasons. You pivot for different reasons, but nothing's stagnant. And now creating the space speaks to it, is so much to me about being in the present, right? We can always look at things down the line, look across. But to me, when I listen to Navigating Now, other leaders that are going through things, not only are they a resource, but they also give you confidence that things aren't as easy as they seem. Here's somebody I can reach out to here's somebody that can give me the courage to navigate through some of the things that we're facing today, personally, professionally, in a lot of different ways. So I know for me, that's one of the things that I do love about it. So we're excited to see the future episodes and the continuing evolution of it. Really excited about that.
Thank you.
Let's jump over to another topic, which we could talk for a long time about, but let's give a little time today about Thoughtium and the evolution of Thoughtium. A lot of us know you and the team and what you do today and your offerings and how you go about. But I want you to walk back, and you actually just did a little in your previous thought about 2016. When you and Norm look back to the vision you had 7 years ago, I'm sure that you had a very specific idea or hope of what's going to happen. Some of those things might be in place today, 7 years later. Some may have never been on the board at all or somewhere in between. But just walk us through a little about when you go back to 2016, what was the vision and how does that compare with where we are today?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I will try to make this efficient because, gosh, I love telling the story of our growing business. And I'd say, if you zoomed out of that 7-year story and you almost saw like a heat map of activity, the last 2 years would be red hot. So, even as a founder, I do like to look back and be nostalgic about the first few years, but the most formative are typically the 24 months leading in, but the beginning's important, right? So, for us, when Norm and I were putting our heads together, we immediately wanted to find a viable business model that allowed us to bring value to, a set of clients, of which were people that we knew, had worked with, or would like to work with. And the only way that we knew how to do it, and I still think it's the best way for anyone who's considering going out on your own and starting a client services business, is clearly defining the value that you bring specifically to the marketplace. And maybe not creating one, but tapping into the work that you've done very successfully in other roles, and in our case, in other organizations. So we did an activity called Norm as a Service or Anthony as a Service. And back then, Anthony as a Service was, this L&D leader that had very progressive ideas on how to build learning and development capabilities from the ground up. And I had some experience doing that for large organizations and with startups. So clearly, and there was a market need. We were seeing, startup organizations left and right rapidly commercializing without a real strategy or even a system in place that they could onboard folks effectively. And Anthony as a Service was the guy that would come in and very quickly install that learning and development engine within the organization. Norm, the same way. He was cut from very similar cloth, working for large organizations. He, in particular, had a real focus on building and scaling through tools and processes. And he also had a lot of experience leading people. And so Norm as a Service was coming in and helping organizations take a strategy and apply a level of prioritization that allowed them to focus on the initiatives and the projects that mattered most. Now, you might think, how the heck does project prioritization and L&D actually come together, to make a business? And to be frank, for maybe the first few years, they really didn't. But we knew that the style with which we worked with our clients, the white glove approach that we both took to our client delivery, and particularly this idea of creating the space, taking a unique approach to bringing our clients into the discussion as opposed to us coming in and delivering products or deliverables, was really that unique kind of common ground. And from that, we knew that we could build so much more than just a 2-person shop. And so over the years, we brought a couple of other folks in that really helped us see that, hey, this is much more than an L&D focused organization or an organization focused on strategy and prioritization. This is a group of people that are really excited about designing and delivering great experiences. And that experience could be helping an organization build out their first learning and development program. That experience also could be bringing a cohort of 25 executives through a progressive leadership development program. The experience also could be, designing and delivering a great 2 to 3 day leadership offsite focused on solving some of the organization's biggest goals. So all of a sudden, we very quickly, as we brought more people into the organization, People like Grift and people like Ashani, these folks that have just as equal of a passion for these types of experiences. We realize that we are now an experience-led organization, and we all come in with our own subject expertise, whether that's in L&D, whether that's in change management, whether that's in strategy development. But at the core is the way that we deliver our services are through these unique experiences. And I will tell you, post-COVID, it's become even more an experience-led firm, because we believe now that consulting services and content are such a commodity in today's world. And now we have, artificial intelligence generating content at scale. The experience is the differentiator. Mm-hmm. And so the more we pour ourselves into designing and delivering great experiences around our expertise, the more the market just continues to scream, we want more Thoughtium. And that's something that really fires us up.
Oh, that's fantastic. And when I hear you talk about that experience from where it was to where you are now, I mean, experience gets to the heart of connection and human connection. And I think you know this better than anybody. You've taught it for years. Experiential learning is the best way to learn, but it's the best way to connect and things like that. So,
but how about experiential strategy?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's kind of what we're getting at, is that even developing strategy should be an experience. Mm-hmm. It really, really should. And it should be an immersive container that leaders step into, and they don't necessarily rely on a few or an outside vendor to develop, decks full of content. They want to step in, and they want to be a part of generating the content that matters most, your mission, your vision. And that strategy should be an experience. So even the work that we do in strategy development has become way more of an experience than it has a process. And again, that's what lights us up the most.
And I don't think, and you and I have chatted about this, many people are doing that at all. When I think about it,
yeah.
I think most of what we see is the traditional way to do those things. So very exciting. And I know we could talk for quite a while about that evolution.
Yeah.
But let's talk about something else. You talked about the journey and the heat map. You and I also know that, and you've chatted a little about pivots. And pivots can be very, very difficult. I'm sure that as you and Norm look back over the 7 years, it might be a little like Mr. Toad's wild ride of twists and turns, and as the organization and things coming in. Walk through, when you think back, what were one or two key pivotal things that you guys had to do, either a new strategy, new direction, working through adversity. Walk us through a couple of pivots in your thought process.
Well, I'll maybe highlight two that are maybe less obvious, because I think a lot of organizations had to make some pretty standard yet very challenging pivots over the last few years. The first that I'll highlight is the kind of managing continuity through COVID and the last few years have immediately thrust all of us on our team to turn inward and make this a truly people-first organization. If you had asked us maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Norm and I were focused on building out a team that could support bringing new people in. And what that looks like is maybe more standard organizational design, putting layers of leadership in that allow for more focused. Sorry for that thumbs up. I'm a hands person. Allow for that more focused kind of one-on-one, like traditional managee type relationship. But I will tell you, when it comes to people, the last few years have thrown the playbook completely out the window. And we're in a space right now where I think collectively as a team, we again have turned inward, and we are all focused on each other almost equally. Now, we have the benefit of still being a fairly small team, 15 folks, but at the same time, it's big enough that, you're going to want some of that kind of traditional one-on-one attention. But so much of what we do as a team now is really focused on supporting each other as people, supporting each other as professionals. And there are no, formal lines of command in the way that we support each other as humans. All the way down to we just had a 2-hour retrospective look at Q3 as a team, and we were sitting in a circle here at WeWork in a conference room, and we had a couple people virtual as well too. And it truly felt like we had a circle of equals that were all looking in on our business, that were all equally stepping into the conversation, the transparency on our performance and our numbers, the way the initiatives that we have to grow and develop our people was 100%. There was no one in the organization that didn't know how well we were doing, to the level that even Norm Wood, who heads up a lot of our performance and accounting, and we've benefited so much from that pivot, the pivot to a true people first organization. It requires a lot less kind of thinking through things, and a lot more just like getting in a room and solving things, or getting in a room and supporting each other, witnessing each other. The offsite that we had as a team in June maybe was that pivot point for us, where we realized we spent 3 days invested truly in each other as humans. Work was off the table. How do you come out of an experience like that and go back to functional silos that report into each other, every other week on your key priorities? You just don't. Not when you've looked in the eyes of somebody from across the way in your organization and reflected back to them the biggest strengths that you see in them in their work and outside of work. You don't go back to traditional reporting lines, outside of that. So, we have reporting lines to support the way that we're growing and scaling as an organization, but the way that we're interacting, the way that we're making business decisions, the way that we're working is completely horizontal, and we love it.
Wow. It also seems that if you have that leadership and initiative and commitment across, that it does remove some of the hierarchy, some of the silos, and some of the things you see in traditional organizations. So I love that the pivot has created the results and the connection, and people willing to work together in that way. So super exciting. Thank you for sharing that. I know that
Absolutely.
That's probably something we don't see as much or hear as much about. So thank you. Well, Anthony, let's jump to our final bucket. And this is one that I know is near and dear to your heart. And it's about leadership. And even going back to L&D, some of your beginnings and leadership development, investing in others, individuals, organizations. One of the things I love about you is it's just who you are. I think you're a phenomenal leader. I know how much you commit to growing. I know how much you're committed to your impact on others and being aware of that. And so I think you're a fantastic leader. I think you're somebody that a lot of us look up to, and a lot of us really appreciate what you do and the way you do it. But for any great leader where they are today, there's always a leadership journey. And again, where you started is not necessarily where you are now. Walk us through your leadership journey, some of the things that you've learned along the way that have made you the great leader that you are today, and how you've evolved specifically.
Yeah, I love that. I'll call on a couple of things, but I first and foremost want to take a moment to also reflect back that, of my entire leadership journey, the one thing that I feel so blessed to have had is an incredible lineage of other leaders and mentors around me. And every year that goes by that I step further into my career and into my own leadership, I am so much more grateful for those people that have been around me. And there's no better example than you, Pat. Somebody who has been in my life for about 10 years, but I'd say over the last 5 years has become an integral part of my life. Somebody who blurs the lines between, formal mentorship, friend. We call each other brothers every once in a while. And it's those types of relationships that have, kind of iron on iron sharpened me as a human, as a man, and as a leader. And I say like those two first. So I'm sure we'll touch a little bit on kind of how we seek this type of mentorship. But like the number one thing for me today is that, can I surround myself with people that make me a better human? Do I have people in my corner that make me a better man? And from that, how can I pull through some of those lessons that allow me to show up as a leader more effectively? And Pat, there's no better example out there than you. There are some incredible examples out there, right? You and I have been influenced by a handful of leaders. one of which, Chuck Pearson, that we love to honor and we love to bring forward in our conversations and conversations like these. I can't talk leadership without thinking about Chuck and the influence that he's had on me, the influence I know that he's had on you and so many others who are maybe even watching today. And again, it was because it was human, and then it was man, and then it was leader. And he just prioritized those two, which was just so incredible. You knew walking into his office that those two came first. And I would say that what I'm most excited about, the start of my career, I was very blessed to have more formal kind of leadership and mentorship working for incredible larger organizations like Pfizer and Astellas that had great cultures and resources to support my leadership more formally. And I think that formal foundation is so important. But there is something that happens. And I don't know whether it's a function of age or whether it's a function of where you're at in your career. There's something that happens where at some point, you have an opportunity to break loose of kind of the formal leadership development track and tap into what I would consider some of the more stronger resources of guidance, of challenge, of information. And that is through the people that you keep close to you, the people that blur the lines between professional and personal. And my hypothesis is that leadership development tomorrow is very, very quickly going to a place where that line is not only blurred, it's completely blown up. And it's an aspect of leadership development that I'm very, very interested in. How can we stand alongside somebody and truly get to know them so intimately that we're able to touch on their personal and professional growth? And why should we have to hold separate containers for those two aspects of our development? And I am so fortunate that very early on in my career, I had people like yourself and like Chuck, who knew no different and saw the value of personal and professional development in a single container. And that's really the heartbeat of my leadership path.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for the kind words. I appreciate that. And I know Chuck has influenced a lot of people watching today and in the network. And, a couple of things when I listen to you talk about where it's going from a leadership, I agree with you. And maybe it is a function of experience or age or moving through. But what I will tell you is I think of the evolution of leadership. There's always the foundation that we grew up with. And you described it well, thinking about some of the core pieces of leadership.
Yeah.
I think almost everything today, at least that I see, and a lot of it's post-COVID, but a lot of it's much more than that, is people call it, we need to shift from strategic experts to human experts or human leadership. Call it what you want, but it is the human piece. And part of the reason, and I really see the value, and I see it with a lot of individuals that I work with and collaborate with, is that to me, the human expert or human leadership is how you get things done. And you described it to a T in the way that Thoughtium is kind of operating now. But you have your traditional ideas of leadership, but what you add to it are things we've heard in authenticity, self-awareness, empathy. And the reason aren't because they're great words, but the reason you do that and the reason you operate and lead and model that is because that's how that's what they value. That's how people are inspired. That's how great cultures are made, because you've got a genuine interest of your people. And you need people within any organization to drive through change in hard times. And I think if you don't have that human leadership, human experience, it's just so difficult, even today, as our workforce changes, to have it. So to me, when I think back of listening to you and some of the evolution, it just gets back to the human side. Nothing else changes. You still have strategic blueprints, execute, that's all there. But how you operate and how you go about on a day-to-day basis, if that piece is missing, I saw an interesting stat. I think I was reading yesterday. I think HR put a huge study out. You can Google this. There's a lot of them out there. 70, 80, 90% of the people agree with some of the things I just shared. Empathy, all those is needed. But in reality, the next question, what percent of leaders do you see that in? They said 20%. So there's a gap, right?
Yeah.
And I thought the next one was telling. 29% of the people in one of these multi-thousand people surveys said, I would give up my pay raise if I could change my boss tomorrow.
Ooh.
So if you think about that and you think about the gap, the needs that we're talking about in leadership, I think there's just a huge opportunity for all of us to really think about how we evolve and meet the needs of the people that we work closely with.
Yeah, I love that. And as you mentioned, this day and age, the what, which is the content and the methodologies and the development tracks and all of that, the content is the commodity. It's everywhere. It's in the public domain. It's out there. The how is the differentiator. And I think we, even in the leadership development space, are looking at very particularly how we are able to develop and instill these skills in today's leaders. And it's not necessarily through a traditional, 4 to 6 week course anymore, because we're building cultures now that are more human centric. So how we're developing empathy, how we're developing agility and influence has to happen within the context of a more human-centric environment. And when it comes to coaching, a more human-centric coaching container. And for me, and I know that term's used a lot, what is human-centric? For me, human-centric is taking consideration of the entire person, right? And so for me as a coachee and as a mentee, I show up to these conversations and these experiences, completely open and vulnerable. And as a coach, demonstrating that vulnerability and blurring the lines between personal and professional has been such an unlock for so many people. As a leader, when you can demonstrate vulnerability, it's like the number one key turn to more engaged individuals, people that find more meaning in their work, and particularly relationship building within your organization, especially a 15-person organization based in Chicago.
Well, I think vulnerability is really the heart of authenticity. If you can let your guard down, and I know people appreciate it. So, all right, Anthony, let me ask you one more question. You touched on it a little, but I want to hear a little bit more about the role of mentorship. Not so much specifically if you have stories to share. You've shared a couple things, but talk to me a little bit more about when you look at mentorship, at a high level, the role it plays for you today, but also where you see that playing out as we work closely with organizations, individuals, and try to develop people. What's the importance of mentorship?
Man, this when I think of the word mentor, I of course think of Chuck because he was the ultimate for me. We had a moment in one of his final years. We were able to sit down and have a very what I would consider formative 37-minute conversation. And at the center of that conversation was this concept of mentorship. And we hadn't really planned on it, but we kind of unpacked it and we defined it as a two-way relationship. This idea of the best mentorships are ones that are truly two-way in nature. And we were kind of distinguishing it from maybe the traditional definition of mentorship, which is that, the junior meets the senior and the senior provides kind of that old oak tree wisdom about their experience and what they've gone through. Chuck and I's relationship was one that, I was able to kind of challenge him from behind, and I was his number two. And I still to this day think that, being a strong leader's number two is the best job in the world, because I had the opportunity to just kind of, tug at his shirt and whisper in his ear, hey, we should go left here. We should invest here. And then, he was the gladiator with the armor that would have to charge through and make it happen. And he did just that. And that's what he got from me, right? He got a little bit of that challenge, a little bit of that air of innovation. And in turn, I got from him a sense of how to really bring big ideas into an organization. And I don't think I would have gotten, that we wouldn't have had that value exchange if it wasn't two-way. I don't think I would have seen value in his experience in building teams and bringing big ideas to an organization had I not been right alongside him, challenging him to really develop some of these innovative, tools and investments in the organization. And so I'll never forget that conversation, because it was then that we almost acknowledged that this relationship, this partnership was two-way in nature. You might not even call it a mentorship, but I consider even today my best mentors, including you, Pat. I learn a ton from you. Our team does as well too. And I know that there's times when you'll leave, the office with Norm and I, and you've got a ton of big ideas from the conversations that we've had. And like, to me, that's what supercharges what we know as a traditional mentorship.
So I love how you phrase that two-way, because I think most people think of a mentor as, I'm an individual starting up early in my career. Who can I get advice from?
Yeah.
How do you help me achieve certain things in life? But I think two-way is, number one, we're always learning from each other. Your experience doesn't matter. Humans are humans. People have things to offer every day. If you come in with that mindset, I love how you described it as a two-way opportunity to co-mentor, co-develop, co-grow together. Because everybody has experiences, right? It doesn't matter about your title. It doesn't matter about who you are. Certainly that gets you more experiences sometimes, but at the end of the day, mentorship really is about two-way. And I love how you kind of position that. So,
Pat, I'm not going to let this episode end without turning the tables just a little bit. Okay. And first and foremost, I so appreciate this dialogue and conversation, and I definitely want you to close it out. I'm not trying to take back the moderator role here, but as you and I have this conversation, I've been doing a lot of thinking about these really strong relationships that I have in my life, yours included. We talk about blurring the lines between professional and personal. We talk about, this new age mentorship that you and I definitely share. And as well, the way that, you and I are positioned within our community, I think is unique today. It's a lot more unique today than it was maybe 10 years ago, where our sphere of influence was within an organization. You and I now, our sphere of influence gets to be much wider. And, I've seen you progress in your career to where you've taken a step outside of kind of the traditional executive path to both explore opportunities for yourself, and I think even more so to build greater influence amongst communities of people that you care about. You have influenced me and the team so much. I'm curious, Pat, as you've explored your, you call it the next step in your career, mm-hmm. How have you seen your influence evolve over the course of the last couple of years since you stepped out of, traditional corporate America?
Well, it's a great question, and somehow I knew you wouldn't let me off the hook that easy, so I kind of felt something was coming. It's a great question, and when I think about my influence, or I think about where I spend time working with others, co-learning from others, mentoring others, I find it in a much broader area and much broader topics. So when I think about it, and you said it well, I'm much more involved literally with a couple of different alumni groups and student groups that are in different stages that I just never took the time to be involved with. And it's not always about career-driven things. It's a lot about some of the things that we've talked about, like lessons in life and things. So I find myself more committed through a couple of universities that I'm working with to help those individuals. I had a great opportunity this past week at BioPitch, Florida, to be involved with young entrepreneurs that are coming up kind of through incubation centers and innovation centers that have great ideas, but just don't know what to do with it or how to really work with it. So I find myself spending and just energized by spending with these individuals that are incredibly talented, but for me, where I can bring in some of my failures, my hard learnings, my tough lessons to accelerate the learning of others is what I really love to do, especially with some of the individuals that are earlier in their career. I think I'd flip it around too now to people that are more at my stage of my career and figuring out their next and next. I will tell you, just from a mentorship, probably over the last year, the biggest difference for me would be I've gone completely outside of my echo chamber, meeting a lot of new people through a lot of different connections, and they can be formal, informal, where there's a craving for people to connect. I'm not even going to call it mentorship, but it's influence, as you said. And that surprised me. Anthony, what I thought I'd see is, you stay within the groups that got you. I never thought it would expand as quickly as it has the last few years. And I think it's because you're not working in a corporation every single day, kind of focused on all the tasks at hand. So I feel with younger individuals, I've had much more of an opportunity to share some key learnings, but just having the time to stretch and look out and find all sorts of individuals that are craving the same connection and experience and learn. I can't tell you how many people want to go to lunch, jump on an hour Zoom call, and I don't really know him that well, but we've connected through friends. So, and that's what I love doing. I love learning, and I think it's a great way to help support other individuals that are trying to work through things in their lives. So that's how I would describe it.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, for every 2 or 3 examples you just provided, I could probably provide 5 or 6 where I've seen your influence. I've also seen your ability to create the space. If you haven't been to a Pat McCauley led Notre Dame tailgate or even just Notre Dame weekend, it's an experience in itself. I know that you have a knack for creating these experiences that draw people in and are so conducive to connection. You know, we're in the age right now, I think, of self-identified development, self-identified connection. Like you said, there's such a craving for it, but people are not relying on their academic institutions or even their place of work for that formal pathway of how to get there. We have learned over the last few years that it is way too easy to connect with people. And now that the restrictions are maybe not as high as they used to be, there's almost this rubber band effect of people going and seeking real deep connection. And for all of you out there that consider yourselves any of the following, and I think all of us are at least one: a leader, a manager, a mentor, a coach, a peer, a brother, a sister, anybody who is at the center of these connections. All you have to do is lift your head up, open your eyes to those people who are right around you, and you will find a handful of people that you can influence deeply today, because there's a huge thirst for that type of connection. And just so thrilled to have you as one of my critical few, Pat. I so appreciate you, your leadership, your mentorship. And I can't wait for next week. We're going out to Scottsdale with a group of guys to have more of these discussions. And I can't wait for years of creating the space with you.
Well, again, thank you. I'll go back to where I started. I really appreciate the opportunity from you, Norm, and the team to be part of the Thoughtium community, and appreciate our connection and leadership as well, and our ability to challenge each other and help each other. So it will always be there, I can assure you.
Of course.
And Anthony, thank you. In closing, before I throw it back to you, I just want to thank you for, again, opening up and letting the tables turn a little. And I meant what I said earlier, that I guarantee you so many people have learned some new things about you that we didn't necessarily know. We do know your fire and your passion. That is not new today, your commitment. But I will tell you that some of the things you've shared from the early beginnings with your family explain creating the space and things like that. So thank you for being open. And, this is episode 158. We're going to come back in 14 years. I think that'll be 316. So get ready. Start thinking about what you're going to share of the next 7 years as we come together. All the great things.
I love that. I think you and I will both be in our next by then. I think Pat, so. Thank you so much. This was such a thrill. I could get used to being on this side of the table for sure. As much as I love facilitating, your knack for creating the space is palpable, especially today. So thank you very much. And we want to thank everybody who has joined today's episode. I see a few folks that we know in our first and second degree. I know that there's a few folks on Thoughtium that have joined as well too. This is a platform for all of us to step in, tell our stories, to learn from others, and as Pat had mentioned, to help us all navigate both life, career, and everything in between. And we want to thank you all for tuning in. So we'll see you all next week, 3 o'clock Central, every Thursday, 3 o'clock Central. You can go to thougtium.com/live for this episode and every other. Pat, thank you so much again for joining.
Thank you.